So, Sophie, how you been?
Been good. It's a busy week here. Fashion week just started.
Nice.
So yeah,
So, you live in New York, right?
I do.
So, what have been the restrictions so far with COVID restrictions? What's it been like?
I mean, it's just dependent on what the event is. A lot of them have lifted at this point. A lot of things like they check for vaccination proof before. Some things they have you do a test. Like a lot of shoots, they'll have as you sort of enter the building, like a testing person designated to test everyone as they come in. But for events, it's usually more like you have to show proof within 24 hours or but it's all lifting though. Like I was at an exhibition opening for David LaChapelle last night, and it was like a very big opening at Photographiska, and I mean, there was no testing before or vaccination proof required. So, it just depends.
So, how did you get started as a photographer?
So I grew up with a camera. My father is a photographer, and he was always, very into like letting us use his cameras and correctly. You had to put the strap on and make sure not to drop it. And but we knew how to use cameras growing up. I mean, and when I was growing up, it was mostly film. I mean, it was kind of on the tradition, like the transition between film and digital. So I grew up using both. Um, and I always knew how to shoot all the different cameras. So, I grew up doing it, going on all his sets. And then I wasn't planning on doing it. Like it wasn't really my thing. For some reason maybe it's kind of like how people who have like doctor parents rebel against maybe being a doctor. I never thought like, oh, I'm gonna be a photographer. It just didn't cross my mind. And then I had friends when I was out of college already, and I was always doing photo shoots for fun of friends, just to like have the pictures and give them to them. But my friends, when I graduated, they were starting sort of it was like right when sort of a lot of e-com and like social media was starting in 2008, and they started a business. It was kind of like a repurposed vintage business where they were selling all the stuff online, and they needed photography, and they knew I was always like running around with a camera and shooting for fun, and they asked if I would do the pictures. And then I did it in trade for clothes, and that was it. That started my career.
Have you seen Olivia Rodrigo's music video, Good For You? Because it's very vintage.
I'm sure I have. I'll watch it again now that you mention it, because I probably didn't pick out that it was vintage. I'm a fan, but not like, I wasn't the one who like made the clothes or like picked out the clothes.
Mhm.
I shot them, but yeah, I mean, it was a really cool way to get started because we would just shoot our friends and like run around the city and find different locations and just, it was very like nothing was too planned or permitted, or we ended up like before the Chelsea Hotel was sort of gutted and redone, we got a room one day in the Chelsea Hotel and shot running around all over the Chelsea Hotel, which is just nuts to think about because it's just like so not done. You're usually like supposed to get a permit, they're supposed to know you're shooting there, but we were like 22 and we didn't care. Like if they ask us to stop, we'll stop, or we'll do, we'll keep doing it in a room and say that we've stopped. So it was
That is
fun.
awesome. That
Yeah.
is really awesome.
That was my start.
The the story you were telling, it reminded me of a friend of mine. His name's Gianni, and he's studying to be a film major, and he did a movie not that long ago called Legit Giant the movie. And when he was telling me about how they made it, he was the first guest I had on my podcast, and that's what his friends did when they got started.
That's how he
Yeah,
just like went in and just started making films. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of how you have to do it, right? Like
very true.
if you don't have like budget or anything, you just kind of like have to make it happen.
You have to do what you have to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And if I may ask, your brother Ansel Elgort, who's gone to star in Baby Driver and Steven Spielberg's remake of West Side Story, do you both have the same interests as artists, or do you have separate interests?
So my whole family, my like family that I grew up in are all artists. So I have two brothers. So Ansel's my youngest brother and he's an actor. And then my middle brother Warren is actually a filmmaker and he's finishing up in grad school for film right now at USC. So he and then my mom is an opera director and my father is a fashion photographer. So we really like, I mean, I would say all of us have similar interests in a way. Like for me, my interest is really like telling people stories, you know, and showing it through image, but also words. Like I do often do things with, you know, interview portions of things. And I would say, you know, for both my brothers and my parents as well, like it's really all about storytelling and creating also the images and the motion to go along. Like even with you know, opera directing on stage, it's telling stories, right? So I think you can do that as an actor. You can choose roles where you want to tell a certain story. And I think, you know, obviously as a filmmaker, you're telling stories, right? And in my portraiture, like I try to tell somebody's story, whether it's just through the image or like an accompanying interview or a film portion. I often do like short films on my subjects as well. Um, and yeah, so I think definitely similar, not exactly the same paths, but similar interests.
That is really, really cool. When you said short films, what kind of project, like short film projects, have you worked on?
So usually when I shoot stills, I also shoot a short film to go along with it. So whether it's like I'm shooting an actor and then I don't do them with sound. So it has like
Nice.
usually to music. So it's kind of more like a music video, I guess, but like in a sort of fashion angle because you know we'll do it on the same set
Mhm.
as the shoot. But that's done a lot now. I mean, a lot of brands, especially as well as publications, want both the stills and the like motion to accompany it.
That is really, really cool. So it's
It's
almost like a silent film.
it's kind of like a silent film with music. Like I would say it's more like moving image. I mean, you can tell a story through it, but yeah, there's no words. So that would be the next adventure is exploring like creating with words. That to me is totally foreign.
Uh, is there any advice you'd like to pass on to people who are starting to become photographers, filmmakers, directors, artists in general? Is there any advice you'd like to pass on to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think now, especially nowadays, there's so many different ways you can be in the industry. You know, with like online being online and social media and self-publishing and all these different things. And so I think, you know, finding your own path and your own point of view and like sticking to it and making it your own, you know, just realizing like you don't have to do what everyone else does. And there's if as long as you keep going and keep creating and keep making things, you know, it's there's so many different ways that you can put your things out there and so many different ways that you can be found, right? Like you can be found by different people or discovered or like create a relationship or collaborate, you know, even in the way that like you reach out to your podcast guests, you know, it seems like you have like a pretty good handle on just like reaching out cold and that's amazing and maybe not something that could have been done 20 years ago. So I think it's all about sort of like using the new sort of not new, but new technology to your advantage and like just keep going. You know, it's hard. It's like it's different than working at a company, right? Where you have someone above you telling you what to do. You kind of have to like create your own path, which can be challenging, but it's also kind of exciting because you have so much freedom in where you want to take what you're doing. But it is definitely hard work and it can be frustrating, but you just got to keep going.
Exactly. Oh, sorry, that was
SpongeBob.
no, that was my no, that was my phone. I forgot to whoops, I forgot to shut it off.
That happens.
Yeah, whenever my phone goes off and I accidentally forget to shut it off, people ask me, what was that? And I was like, oh, it's Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin from Spider-Man.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Have you seen the new one yet?
Not yet. No. That's funny. Somebody
You
just asked me that the other day.
You haven't seen the new Spider-Man, not even the extended version that just came out.
No, nothing. I know. I have a lot of catching up to do.
You got to watch it when you get the chance. You have to go watch it. It's
Okay.
one of the best Spider-Man films that are out there.
Is
I
that
mean,
the kind
because
of filmmaking you want to do?
I'm actually more of a comics. I mean, yes, there is film that I want to go into, like character designing for films and storyboarding. I actually got hired to do a storyboard for a proof of concept. It's a rom-com.
Cool.
And there's also a rom-com. It's a science fiction rom-com that I'm trying to sell. And it's about a guy who lives in regular world and he gets transported to another universe. And it's like a vintage universe, like
Oh,
that Riverdale vintage universe. And he has to figure out why he's here. How did he get here? Who sent him? Who brought
yeah.
him here? And then he meets these friends, and then there's this person he has to protect, and there's a villain on the loose. I have the summary somewhere. It's lost in my notes.
Cool.
Yeah. And something that I just want to say thank you for when you were saying when it comes to writing scripts, whether if you're doing it on your own or collaborating with someone, like write out bullet points and outline. I just want to say that's really helped a lot. So thank you.
Oh, good. Did you make some progress on your?
I did. I did.
My good friend Shruti Ganguly, she's a director. And she was the one, she's always pushing me to make a longer film. She's like, come on, you got to make like an actual film. No more, not no more, but like you got to do things with words and tell a story and whatever. So I said, I don't know how, this was like 2 years ago. And I was like, I don't know how do I do that? And she was the one who gave me that advice originally. So I'm glad it could sort of go forward and help out someone else as well.
But yeah, right at the moment while doing the process, I'm right at the scene where he's trying to figure out because the villain, it's like a mystery kind of villain. It's how would I describe it? Did you ever read Agatha Christie books?
Yes, a long time ago in school.
Well, you know like how it's like a mystery sort of story and you're trying to figure out who the villain is and who committed the crime. That's what it's like with the villain. Like the villain wears a helmet, and then the person when the villain takes off the helmet, you find out who it is. That's the process that I'm at right now in my notes.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
definitely send it my way once you have something done. I'd love to see it.
Yes, yes. Well, Sophie, it was fun chatting with you. It's
Thank you. You too.